So let me start by telling you that I hope that most of what we'll do tonight after we introduce ourselves will be about this part. Not necessarily about our bio. I'll certainly tell you what I did and why I did it. But I think that what's important to discuss, and hopefully this will fuel much of the dialogue that you guys will be driving shortly, are all the other factors, tangible and intangible, in addition to obviously competence and technical skills that really drove our careers and kind of got us where we are. So in terms of so I think you can tell from this picture that I consider this area is sort of like the what's actually supporting the iceberg, and what's really on paper is only a very superficial snapshot on someone. Some people look great on paper, but actually that by itself does not generate high level of performance and success. So quickly, Chris already mentioned that I got my two of my degrees at MCP and one here, and on many levels the degree here was actually very, very impactful on my whole career, and I think I was talking offline to some people with why that was. I got both of my graduate degrees while I was working full time, and I bring that up because you guys are in school, and I think for me, the focus, the level of focus, because it was a deliberate decision to go back to school while I was working. And actually, when I got my PharmD, I was traveling probably 60% of my time, mostly internationally, for my job. So I was actually very, very focused. I had to get the most out of it, because that's kind of how I look at things, since I was putting the effort into it. I started out as a clinical pharmacist at Dana-Farber, wonderful exposure to patient care. And also when you work in oncology, whatever you do the rest of your career, you'll never forget what comes first is the patient. You'll hear about business models, about great slide sets, about revenue. If you're in a healthcare profession and if you don't put the patient first in a meaningful way, I think it's highly unlikely you can be successful, especially in today's environment that's changing with healthcare reform. I was recruited then in biotech about 100 years ago in the late 80s, where I got exposed to clinical research, and I started doing drug development from a company perspective, where I had been doing a fair amount of clinical development as a clinical site at Dana-Farber. And then the company was acquired, another great experience. You move now from a small, highly entrepreneurial environment to a large, not necessarily entrepreneurial, but a very large environment that teaches you a whole new set of skills. It's really a new language. It's a new way of interacting with people. And it's really invaluable for me to add that to my repertoire. And then I made a move while I was there from clinical research to translational research about 12 years ago, when we entered the age of translation. The human genome was decoded, so all of a sudden there was a whole other way that we thought we could go about identifying drug targets and pathways. It actually made drug development much more complicated short term, because we now know we don't understand these targets as well as we thought we did. But long term, it's certainly the path to personalized medicine, so that we can get away from this trial and error we really approach to medication. And then I was recruited to venture capital, another language yet, truly a different language, and invaluable experience. And here I worked across all therapeutic areas, drugs, devices, diagnostics, and really looking at the business side of things. What will it take to fund a company? What does it take to run a company? And I'll tell you that in addition to the great science, if you don't have the best team, the science doesn't matter. And I will hire the best team with B-class science any day over an A-class science project with a B-class team. That's very important to remember. Quality, quality, and excellence. And then I ended up joining one of our companies to run drug development. And that was an endeavor that I pursued for about 3 years, literally from startup to when we closed the company 6 months ago, when we recognized that the data was driving the science and therefore the business decisions in a totally different direction than we thought it was going. And again, a great lesson about knowing to step back and reevaluate if you're still on the right track, or if you need to change directions based on the reality of what the data tells you. And the data can be scientific data, can be business data, can be a lot of things. So for me, I refer to Steve Jobs again, you can never connect the dots forward. You think you can construct your ideal CV, I don't believe in that, or the ideal career trajectory. In reality, in retrospect, for me, the common denominator was development of novel drugs in areas of unmet medical need. I wouldn't have known that up front, but now it's pretty clear what drove me throughout all these different steps. So I already alluded to some of the things that were motivating to me and induced me to make each step from one to the other. It was really the cutting edge science in top-tier organizations. And actually, I will emphasize the top-tier organizations almost more than the cutting edge science. A lot of science looks great and cutting edge. Some of it will fail because we cannot get biology to do different things. But it's about how you pursue that. Again, it's excellent quality, generating data you can rely on to make the right decisions, whether for a business or for development. And for me, it was, again, part of being something that really, really mattered to me. And when something matters to you, as we all know, you're driven, you're passionate, and that usually translates into a high level of performance that other people notice, and you are offered opportunities that otherwise might just pass you by. So the meaningful role, always coupled with the opportunity to stretch outside of your comfort zone and grow. It's always about that, what else can I add to my repertoire that's gonna make it a little bit more differentiated? What will I learn? And again, I talked about the people. For me, competence, integrity, there's just no replacement for that. You can't compromise there. And never override the gut factor. Does it feel right? My last comments are lessons learned, and I already alluded to some of them. Stay open to opportunities. I talked to a lot of you over the years, and you guys get exposed. You have Google now, you have the internet. We didn't have we were a lot more naive when we were in your shoes. And sometimes people are they're just so focused on a career plan. And I always warn them, stay flexible enough. You'll miss things if you're too focused on what you think or what somebody tells you should do. It's really important to recognize what's around you, and also the fact that the landscape changes. Something that was not an opportunity 2 years earlier, it may be a great one now. Look at the economy in the last few years. Look at the changes in healthcare in the last 3 to 5 years. And it's just going to be more of that. So all those are challenges, but open huge opportunities for you. I talked about the fact that you can be a very successful person even if the science fails. You can't will the science into what it can do, but you can still be very successful. And the last point I want to make is that all of us got into what we did because we had certain competence, technical skills. It's what I call the what. But the reason we grew and continue to grow and be able to move through different environments is that we developed the how skills, which is ability to communicate, ability to influence. And I don't mean telling people what to do, because a lot of the influence you need to do is up, down, parallel. You have to be able to influence people without them reporting to you. They want to do this. And people assume that being an entrepreneur means being a maverick. Not all of us are Steve Jobs. Very few of us will ever be Steve Jobs. And sometimes, always you have to look at the environment and how you're going to be most impactful in that given environment. You can't have this maverick recipe and say, this is the right behavior. I'm going to, rock the boat and induce change. You have to be, and the ability to be effective, depending on where you are, is really what differentiates people who tend to do well. And never close doors behind you. That's absolutely crucial. And don't forget networking. It's not schmoozing, it's networking. It's critical. I wish I had much more of that. I was more focused on that early in my career. And you guys have huge opportunities with this program, and again, with your exposure to the world, to really take advantage of it. And we spend a lot of time at work. So for me, one of the litmus tests had always been, am I having fun? That's not trivial at all. Thank you.